The Book of Truth. The Creed of Agnostic Atheism by James W. Pope, creator and founder of the religious spirituality known as Agnostic Atheism. Introduction. Hello, and welcome to the world of Agnostic Atheism, a realm of endless possibilities and truths. You might be thinking, I've heard the term agnostic atheist before, and you'd be correct. But this form of agnostic atheism is unlike anything you've known, I can promise you that. The religious spirituality I call agnostic atheism is the belief in multiple possibilities being valid, rather than just one. It encompasses both external belief systems, such as religions, and internal belief systems, personal convictions. In nearly all religions and spiritualities I can think of, they believe in a single possibility, although some interpret that possibility differently. For example, Protestants and Catholics within Christianity hold slightly different beliefs, but both believe in one primary explanation for the creation of the universe and life. In agnostic atheism, we consider multiple possibilities as valid, rather than insisting on just one. The truth is, humanity has not yet proved beyond a doubt the answers to fundamental questions. Where did humans come from? How did the universe begin? Where did all life originate? Science has yet to provide definitive answers, and neither religion nor any human knowledge has conclusively proven one explanation over others. Instead, we have many possibilities, and no one has established a single, unquestionable truth. Of course, science favors the Big Bang theory for the universe's origin, while most religions attribute creation to God or gods, sometimes even viewing the universe itself as divine. But we will explore these ideas further. For now, the key point is that, because we lack certainty, all plausible answers deserve consideration. This is why all religions and spiritualities are included within agnostic atheism. It is a spiritual path open to all possibilities, a true religious spirituality in its broadest sense. Honestly, I find the idea of infinite energy that never began and never ends, just as perplexing as the concept of an omnipotent being creating all energy and life. Both are equally confusing, and neither holds more ground than the other. In agnostic atheism, beliefs are not forced upon anyone. Instead, people are encouraged to believe in their possibilities and hold hope that one day, the right answer will be found. There is no leader or overseer, each individual is free to follow their own beliefs. The only guiding principle is to treat all life as sacred, as most humans naturally do. However, this is complicated in practice because humans often value some lives more than others. This hierarchy is simply part of the universe's nature. All animals treat each other differently. Elephants regard ants differently from lions, sharks treat fish differently from whales. I could go on. It is not my place to determine which life forms are most or least valuable. Personally, I believe human and sentient life should be valued above all others from our perspective. The universe has entrusted us with the responsibility to care for and nurture life on this planet. I believe nature gave us this responsibility intentionally. I think we are the right beings for the job. No other creature has the capacity to look after all life as humans do. This book aims to present truths, though it's important to recognize that different truths exist. First, there is objective truth, what is true regardless of beliefs. Then, there is subjective truth, what is true from one perspective but may not be from another. We also encounter moral truths, logical truths, empirical truths, historical truths, and scientific truths. Human history, of course, can be manipulated or embellished, but when evidence exists, such as a volcanic eruption, denying the event becomes increasingly difficult. Although some may disagree with certain points, I have written this with sincerity, from my heart and mind, and it belongs in the Book of Truth. My first objective truth: nobody ever said you must believe in just one possibility for the universe's origins. No one has ever mandated that you accept only one answer to these profound questions. Therefore, all religions and spiritualities are included in agnostic atheism. Everyone, past, present, and future, believes in something or nothing. This even amusingly applies to AI and robots, though this book is meant for humans. Honestly, I wanted to give humanity one more thing to unite us, something that emphasizes commonality rather than division. I hope that someday, the unification of all religions, spiritualities, and science under one umbrella will help bring us closer. Call me crazy if you like, but I believe that all religions and science are fundamentally about the same thing, the universe. We, as humans, tend to anthropomorphize, attribute human traits to everything around us. We see faces in trees or rocks because our minds are wired to recognize patterns. Over thousands of years, this tendency to see human qualities in nature led to the creation of gods and spiritual beliefs. Long before Christianity and Judaism, ancient cultures worshipped gods representing natural forces, Zeus in Greece, Odin in Norse mythology, and countless others. These deities personified aspects of nature, sky, sea, earth, and more. Ancient Greece, for example, had gods like Zeus, sky, Hades, underworld, and Poseidon, sea. They understood little of the cosmos beyond the moon, sun, and planets within our solar system. Their gods, like ours, Mars, symbolized forces of nature they observed. Throughout history, many cultures worshipped nature through gods and spirits, sacrifices, rituals, and prayers to appease these forces. The idea of God, Allah, or Yahweh, whether as a personal deity or the universe itself, stems from this human tendency to anthropomorphize. To many, what all religions call God is simply the universe, the sum of all that was, is, and will be. Today, we distinguish between the visible universe, what we can see and measure, and the entire universe, which includes what we cannot observe. For example, at the edges of our observable universe, interactions occur that we cannot yet explain. Islam, for example, teaches that Allah is separate from the universe, but I question this. If the universe is the totality of nature, how could Allah be entirely separate? Conversely, if Allah created the universe, then they are intertwined. I also question why some religious followers accept human fallibility, such as mistakes or errors in sacred texts, yet claim their deity is perfect. If humans wrote the texts, and those texts are changed over time, can we truly claim they are pure divine revelation? Science seems to support the idea that what all religions call God is the universe itself, an intricate, interconnected system. The universe demonstrates power and complexity, yet whether it is conscious or not remains an open question. I consider the possibility that the universe could be a simulation, created by some alien or higher intelligence, perhaps a childlike being named Barry, all hail Barry. In that case, Barry would be God within the simulation, wielding immense power. From this perspective, what is true for humans may not be true outside our limited understanding. The entire universe could be a simulation, and in that case, absolute truth might be unreachable. This leads me to the idea that agnostic atheism is about keeping an open mind, considering all possibilities without dogma. I do not dismiss the notion of a conscious universe or an intelligent creator, I simply acknowledge we lack definitive proof. My intention is inclusivity. I see all religious beliefs as different expressions of the same fundamental human need to understand the universe. I encourage everyone to follow their own beliefs, no conversion required. I believe that, perhaps, the root of all religion is pantheism, the idea that the divine is everything. Over millennia, humans have given nature human traits, gods and spirits, forming a complex web of beliefs. The story of heaven and hell, for example, likely originates from pagan concepts. Ancient cultures believed that life continued after death in realms such as Hades or the underworld. Before the rise of monotheism, many cultures worshipped multiple gods representing natural forces, what we call paganism. The Greeks, Romans, Egyptians, and others all had pantheon gods ruling over aspects of nature. The shift to a singular, male deity, such as the Christian God, was a significant evolution. Yet, in Holy Scripture, God is described as beyond gender, so why do many still refer to God as He? Historically, humans worshipped nature itself, water, fire, air, earth, because they were vital for survival. Over time, these elements acquired human-like qualities, leading to gods ruling over them. Today, many equate God with the universe, what all religions have in common. The visible universe is what we see, the universe itself includes what we cannot observe. This does not necessarily mean two separate universes, but it is possible that our universe was born from the death or transformation of another. In biological terms, perhaps we are a child universe, originating from a parent universe, just as cells divide. If the universe was created by a white hole, an opposite of a black hole, then nothing can escape it. A white hole would be a natural phenomenon, perhaps fleeting, that spews out matter and energy. Science has yet to observe white holes, but their existence is theorized. The Big Bang itself might be interpreted as a white hole, an explosion of energy from a previous state. Some suggest that our universe could be a simulation, created by an advanced civilization or higher intelligence, like Barry. If so, Barry would be God within the simulation, wielding power beyond our understanding. This perspective emphasizes humility. What is true for us might not be true outside our limited perception. Absolute certainty remains elusive. I recognize that I could attribute human traits to the universe or a creator. This is the essence of anthropomorphism. But I remain open to all possibilities, including the universe as a conscious being or as a creation of consciousness. My goal is unity. I believe that all religions stem from a shared origin, giving human qualities to nature, and that, ultimately, we are all seeking the same truth, the universe itself. Chapter 1, In the Beginning. The truth about beginnings is that they must have come from an end, something that once was, which led to what is now. Most scientists believe in the Big Bang theory because of the evidence and data gathered by humanity. This theory suggests that all the visible mass and energy in the universe originated from a single point. However, this is disputed by some scientists. I won't be able to explore every possibility here, but I believe the universe was created through the Big Bang via what is called a white hole. You may recall that a black hole is a space phenomenon where gravity is so intense that nothing, not even light, can escape it. A white hole is theorized to be the reverse. Instead of matter being pulled in, nothing can get in. From a scientific perspective, chemistry teaches us that reactions require specific chemicals in place for them to occur. Similarly, energy cannot be truly destroyed, it only changes form. Therefore, the components necessary for the Big Bang must have existed in some form before the event itself. When I hear scientists claim that nothing existed before the Big Bang, I find that contradicts the principles of science and chemistry. I cannot say exactly what form that energy took or how it was created, but current physics suggests that the energy was always present in some capacity, simply changing forms. For a white hole to exist, the only plausible candidate is a black hole, since they are essentially opposites. If a black hole lost its stability, it might become a white hole, ejecting matter and energy. Science has not yet observed a white hole, and they're believed to be very short-lived, so unless we happen to look at one at the right moment, we won't see it. I argue that the Big Bang itself could be interpreted as a white hole, an explosion of energy from a previous state. Interestingly, some scientists share this view. But, ultimately, we cannot prove that the Big Bang wasn't just Barry turning on his universe simulation. All hail Barry. The truth is, we simply do not know. Nobody does. Until new evidence emerges, all possibilities must be considered. Unlike many religions, agnostic atheism does not depend on a definitive answer. It embraces the idea that the origin of the universe and life may always remain a mystery. The moment a conclusive answer is found, multiple possibilities are eliminated, and agnostic atheism would cease to be relevant. I doubt that will happen anytime soon. In the beginning of humanity, there were no holy scriptures such as the Bible, Torah, or Quran. No divine laws carved in stone. Instead, our ancestors relied on their senses, their brains, their hearts, and their spirits. Guiding principles that have always existed, the laws of nature and the universe. These laws existed long before humans and will continue long after us. When I refer to what religions call God, I call it the universe. If I ever find evidence that the universe itself is conscious, I will change my terminology. But for now, I see no reason to do so. It's often said that the universe is a conscious being, and I remain open to that possibility. I also see no evidence that it isn't, especially considering modern concepts like simulations. Many video games create entire universes with simulated life, which are just code, zeros and ones. Could our universe be similar? If so, then Barry, all hail Barry, might be the creator of the simulation, an alien or higher being beyond our understanding. Barry would be God within this context, wielding power beyond what humans can conceive. What is true for us might not be true outside our limited perception. If the universe is a simulation, then nothing might be definitively true. This idea reminds us of our humility. We cannot claim absolute certainty. I believe that all religious beliefs, whether polytheistic or monotheistic, originate from giving human traits to nature, anthropomorphing. Over thousands of years, this tendency led to the creation of gods and spirits. In ancient Greece, for instance, gods ruled over aspects of nature. Zeus ruled the sky, Poseidon the sea, Hades the underworld. These deities represented natural forces that early humans sought to understand and appease. Long before Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, human cultures worshipped nature through multiple gods and spirits. These ancient beliefs were rooted in animism, paganism, and shamanism, viewing natural elements as divine. The shift to a single, male deity, such as the Christian God, was a significant evolution. Yet, in Holy Scripture, God is described as beyond gender, beyond human concepts of male or female. So why do many still refer to God using male pronouns? Historically, humans worshipped nature itself, water, fire, air, earth, because these were vital for survival. Over time, these elements acquired human-like qualities, leading to gods ruling over them. Today, I see the divine in the universe, what all religions have in common. The visible universe is what we perceive, the entire universe includes what we cannot see. This distinction does not necessarily imply two separate universes, but it remains a possibility. Perhaps our universe was born from the death or transformation of a previous one. In biological terms, we might be a child universe, emerging from a parent universe, similar to cell division. If the universe were created by a white hole, a phenomenon opposite to a black hole, then nothing can escape it. White holes are the rise to spew out matter and energy fleetingly. While science has yet to observe white holes, their existence remains plausible. The Big Bang itself could be interpreted as a white hole, an explosion of energy from a previous state. Some speculate that our universe is a simulation, created by an advanced intelligence, perhaps a being named Barry, all hail Barry. If true, Barry would be the god in this context, wielding immense, incomprehensible power. This perspective emphasizes humility. What is true for us might not be true outside our perception. Absolute certainty remains elusive. I acknowledge that I might attribute human traits to the universe or a creator. This is anthropomorphism. But I remain open-minded about all possibilities, including the universe's consciousness or its origin as a divine creation. My ultimate goal is unity. I believe that all religions spring from a shared desire to understand the universe, an expression of pantheism, the idea that the divine is everything. Chapter 2: The Truth About Truth. The truth about truth is that it can be both a tool and a weapon. One day, it can serve as a shield, the next, as a sword. I also refer to what I call truthful lies, paradoxical, I know. But let me explain. Sometimes, people take a lie and wrap it in enough truth that, on the surface, what is being said appears to be true. In many cases, it is. But there are often small details that are inaccurate or incomplete, either in what is said or how it is presented. An example from my own experience: when I was in Africa on holiday, I saw a lion roar directly in my face. I sat on a crocodile, and I slept in a mud hut beside a river full of hippopotamuses. But, of course, if I don't tell you that there was a corrugated metal fence between me and the lion, then what I've said is technically true, but not the full truth. I did see a lion roar at me, but I was behind a fence. Similarly, when I sat on the crocodile, my parents had bought a large quantity of fish from the local market. These fish had been fed to the crocodile until it was full and couldn't move. So, I sat on a full, well-fed crocodile. If I omit that detail, it sounds more dangerous or dramatic than it actually was, but I didn't lie, I just left out part of the story. In truth, the pregnant female crocodile nearby was far more dangerous than the crocodile I sat on. It was a mother protecting her nest, and she was far more aggressive than the crocodile. In terms of religion and belief, many stories are similarly layered. Different interpretations, translations, and embellishments have altered the original truths over time. What was once a straightforward story can become a complex, sometimes distorted, version passed down through generations. For example, the story of Jesus and the Virgin Mary. The word virgin, in some original texts, might have been better understood as innocent or pure, but over time, translations and language shifts led to virgin, which has shaped perceptions and beliefs. This highlights a critical point: truth can be manipulated. It can be wrapped in lies or altered by language, translation, or intention. That's why, in my view, the art of communication and accuracy of words are crucial in approaching truth. In religion, many stories and doctrines have been interpreted differently, leading to countless factions and beliefs within the same faith. The end of days, for example, might not refer to the destruction of the world but to a transformation, an end of the current way of life or understanding. I believe the future might hold a different understanding, maybe the end of human civilization as we know it, replaced by a digital or technological evolution. We've already begun this change. Moving from cogs and steam engines to digital systems, artificial intelligence, and space exploration. Could the end of days refer to the end of the current human understanding of time, or the end of physical life? Or perhaps, as some suggest, it's a metaphor for the evolution of consciousness or existence itself. For example, the story of Jesus walking on water or turning water into wine, these might be explained scientifically, fermentation, natural phenomena, or simple tricks. Over time, such stories become mythologized, but at their core, they might be based on real, natural events or clever techniques. Similarly, some religious beliefs about divine intervention could be rooted in natural processes that we don't yet understand. I remain open to all possibilities because, ultimately, I acknowledge that we know so little. Regarding Islam, I've been told that Prophet Muhammad was illiterate, and his followers or scribes wrote down the Quran. If that's true, I question how he could verify the accuracy of what was documented. If the words were changed or misrecorded, then it raises the question, was it truly the word of Allah? Many believe the Quran is perfect and unaltered, but history and human nature suggest that texts can be modified over time. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone's faith, only questioning and exploring possibilities. the core truth remains: science and the universe support the idea that what religions call God is the universe itself, an interconnected, powerful system, whether conscious or not. Now, I also consider the possibility that the universe could be a simulation. If it were, then Barry, all hail Barry, or some other higher intelligence would be the God behind it all. In this context, what seems true to us might be different from what exists outside our perception. We cannot claim certainty, only possibilities. The key is humility. We are limited in our understanding, and that's okay. The pursuit of truth is ongoing and never final. Chapter 3: The Truth of Death and Insanity. Long ago, when I was 20 years old, I sadly nearly lost my life. Truthfully, this is a painful story. I was having a house party, kind of a farewell to the way I had been living. Too many parties and the normal stuff young people do. Sadly, we got locked out that night, and someone was going to climb up the side of our house to get in through the bathroom window. I knew the back door was open, however, this could only be accessed if someone jumped from the garage to the back door. There were stone steps leading up to the back door. 80 this time in my life, without sounding arrogant, I was very athletic, a healthy 20-year-old male. I figured, instead of my friend risking falling from a second-story height, I could just jump across a first-floor height, across the gap to the landing in front of the back door, also about a first-floor height. Truthfully, this is the moment my life changed forever. It was not actually that difficult a jump, just risky. I was obviously confident I could do that, thought it was the better option, and so went to do it, despite my friends telling me I should not. So I ran up to jump from the garage, over the steps to the flat section by the back door, simple enough. Except for a few steps before I jumped, I heard a voice in my head: "Why don't you jump like Spider-Man?" And because in that moment I thought it was my own brain, I responded as if it was my own thinking, and I did jump like Spider-Man, even pulling the mid-air pose. The only problem was, in pulling that pose, I had changed the jump, changed the flight path of the jump, and essentially stalled mid-air Spider-Man pose and dropped to the stone steps. At this point, I can promise you, my life started to flash before my very eyes, racing through memories, and time slowed down. Almost as if it was taking minutes to fall, not seconds. My life flashed before my eyes, and I came to the realization I was going to hit these stone steps like a belly flop, rib first, face first, pretty much. So the flashing of my life before my eyes kind of continued at the same time as falling, while knowing I was falling, and it got to the part where I lost a friend from a similar impact. Their ribcage had cut the main artery to their heart in the impact, and I believed that was going to happen to me. After all, I was falling from a good 12 to 18 feet, depending on how high I jumped, ribcage first onto some stone steps. So with the knowledge, I would likely suffer a similar injury and therefore fate. I had to take drastic action. Which part of my body will I sacrifice to carry on? I came to the conclusion that because of playing football my entire life with my right foot, I am right-hand. It would be easier to heal than my left side. Because I had less muscle memory there, I knew my brain would find it easier to repair my right side than my left. So I sacrificed the strongest part of me, so the weaker parts could carry on. I will never know if that was the right choice in regards to which side of my body to sacrifice. So I crossed my arms and turned the right side of my body to the ground so my right side of my body hit the steps, not the front of my chest and face. I, of course, hit the floor with tremendous force. The main impact was on my hip. Although the step above that impacted my rib cage, chipping a small bit of bone off it, the lower step to the one that hit my hip actually hit my thigh. My knee was fine. The air was taken out of my body, and I could not breathe. It took me a few seconds after the impact to get a breath, and I crawled on my hands and knees across that dirty garage to the garage door to let my friends in. I was lying on the floor, wheezing, broken and in more pain than I can describe. Yet I managed with all my might and with what little breath I had, to reach up, turn the key and open the garage door. Thinking my friends would help me, of course. I cannot say for sure how many people were there that night. I would say 6, 5 of them I considered friends. 5 of them just walked straight past me, laughing. I had just nearly died, albeit doing something silly. But they just walked past me like I was a beggar needing change in the street. The last one to walk past, who did help me up. Actually, earlier in the night had technically sexually assaulted me, albeit accidentally. But we will not get into that. So I thought I would be okay, just tried to carry on working, get on with it. As you do. 6 weeks later, when I was still in more pain than I would wish on anyone, I went to the hospital. Turns out I had fractured my hip and severely damaged my nerve. So I had been limping to and from a full-time job for 6 weeks with a fractured hip and severely damaged sciatic nerve. I was literally dragging my right leg behind me. The truth is, I am a schizophrenic. I hear voices that nobody else can. I never knew this until years after the accident. I never knew until I was in my late 20s that I had this terrible disability. I knew my whole life something was wrong with me, that I was different to everyone around me, I just did not know how. But actually, it explained a lot. Had I known I was a schizophrenic then, it may have saved me from the years of pain and suffering I had to go through. I would not have mistaken it for my brain, I would have known it was a hallucination. Sadly, I did not know, and so I treated it as if it were my brain and my own voice in my mind. It nearly cost me my life, not knowing the truth. The truth is, even when I was a very little boy, I would walk around the fields near our house, talking to what I believed was God. Then one day, the voice told me, after my parents shouted at me, that they did not love me. I concluded that God would never tell a child that their parents did not love them. So it could not be God. Yet as I write this now as a 35-year-old man, it honestly seems as if the voice was correct. So how did the voice know something that I did not, that I never believed, and then later in life, it seems to be the fact? Strange, don't you think? But I did ask God for something. I asked to become one of the strongest men on the planet. Not physically, but mentally and emotionally. The voice told me that to gain that strength, I may have to suffer more than any other human to get it. That scared me. The voice was sometimes not nice, but nasty, so I created this separation in my whole life by just ignoring it and talking over it. Knowing that, it could not be me, how could it be? How did it know things I did not know, before I knew them? How did it know things that would happen in my life, before they happened? So I agreed with the voice that, should I be given that, should I be gifted strength like that, I would spread the word of the universe being God. It may have been a deal made with a hallucination as an 8-year-old boy in a field in Surrey, but a deal is a deal, and my logic behind it is that I am a man of my word. So even although I am not a theist who likes a Christian or Muslim, I am, however, somewhat a pantheist. I believe what all religions call God is the universe. I just don't know if the universe is conscious or not. So I really cannot deny my own God's terms of a deal. A deal is a deal, terms agreed are terms agreed. It is also why I have never and would never call myself an atheist. Agnostic atheism and atheism are not the same thing, despite what people believe. Throughout most of my life, the voices never really bothered me that much, but annoying, sure, but it was no problem. But by the age of 25, through the pain of learning to walk again, dragging my leg along each day, I hoped it would all be worth it one day. The voices got louder, my own brain's thinking sound got quieter, and the sound of my hallucinations began drowning out the sound of my thoughts. I still, at this point, did not know I was a schizophrenic. because of my lifetime working with technology and my understanding of technology. I instead concluded that people were doing this to me with some kind of technology in my ear. As insane as that sounds, it seemed logical at the time. Being insane never crossed my mind. I don't think it ever does cross an insane person's mind that they are unwell. Thankfully, I was not criminally insane. But if I had not created this separation of the voice, thinking it was trying to do me harm, rather than a friend who helped me, this allowed me to defy the voice, defend myself from it, and refuse to say, do, or behave in the way it wanted. I won't even begin to describe some of the most evil things those voices said to me, and I find it very disturbing how science views that as my brain, so telling myself evil things. When that was not me, none of what that voice said was me. Just came from the faulty wiring in my brain is how I like to think of it. So, eventually, the pain from nearly dying, truthfully, nearly drove me insane. Then one day, the police, unable to see past my pain and suffering, mistook it for anger, and I was wrongly arrested for common assault. I shouted at a person who assaulted me. That is the single and only arrest of my entire life to date. I am a good man. Not a violent criminal, like I was treated. I was then wrongly charged with common assault as well, but that is not the story I am getting into here, merely an impact detail. It was the police wrongly treating me the way they did that was the final nail in the coffin. I had been on the brink of losing my mind for years, never really getting that close. The injury put me on the edge, and the police pushed me over it, taking me away from my newborn baby 2 weeks after she was born. Having to wait for months because of the backlogs in the British court systems, my daughter was born, and I was wrongly taken away from her. It killed me inside. I have tried so very hard my entire life to be a good man, and to be treated so wrongly, it was pure evil what was done to me. But sadly, that was just the beginning of things getting bad. I became insane from all that, the years of limping day after day, the years of neglect from my own family. Now they were neglecting my daughter as well. The more time goes on, the more I question how a schizophrenic hallucination knew something at 6 years old I did not know until I was a 30-year-old man. I don't think science can so easily explain such things. So eventually, after the court case, I was able to return home to my newborn baby. I started thinking the neighbors downstairs were doing it to me, harassing me with voices somehow through technology. It drove me crazy, every day, all day. Non-stop harassment by voices saying awful, horrible things that only I could hear, and nobody else could. Every time I mentioned it, people looked at me like I was insane. None of it made any sense at the time. So the police ended up coming out and a doctor assessed me, and I willingly went with them to a mental health ward. My first detention under the Mental Health Act was willingly. It also was not that bad, really. After a few days away, I felt much better. The voices stopped, and in a few weeks, they discharged me. I was not even discharged on medication, I don't think. I was not home long before it started again, and it just reaffirmed my belief that it was people near my home doing it to me. Looking back, I can very easily understand why schizophrenics come to some crazy conclusions about why they are hearing voices, aliens, demons, angels, God, Satan, that sort of thing. So now I was this crazy, angry man limping along who was dressed in really dirty clothes as I was in so much pain I could barely stand, let alone make myself look nice. It was just not happening. Except the anger was from my pain, the pain that never went away for 12 years. Nerve pain is really bad. So people treated me like this man with anger problems when I was only sounding angry, because of the pain I was in. So people would treat me like I was a man with an anger problem, and that would make me angry. Because I was just not able to not sound angry, because I was in that much pain. The way I was treated was disgusting, really, but I understand. I cannot have been very easy to deal with when I was suffering like that. So sadly, I did not get better mentally, I actually got worse. I got held under the Mental Health Act again. I actually ended up getting held under the Mental Health Act for times overall. Sadly, what happens in Britain is they send the police out to essentially cart you off like a prisoner to a highly secure mental health facility or ward. After my previous experience, I was not going willingly, but I was not going to run and hide. So I decided that the logical thing a non-insane person would do would be to try to explain to the police officers why you were actually not unwell. But what had been done and what you were dealing with that made me appear this way. I eventually told the male officer that I was just going to refuse to be held under the Mental Health Act and walk away. I had not committed a crime, so I thought I should be fine. Instead, the male officer put me in a headlock and failed to throw me to ground, giving me whiplash in the process. Even now, nearly 10 years later, my neck clicks every day, and I am in pain every day. That was another injury to add to the ones I already had. Not that the police cared about slowing down my learning to walk again. They did not care when they did it, and they don't care now. We now live in a world where an innocent member of the public can be given lifelong injuries because of police negligence, and nothing is done. So the male officer was also not strong enough to put my hands in cuffs, as I decided to just stand still. A female officer had hold of my left arm, and a male officer who had just nearly broken my neck had hold of my right arm. Both of them lacked the strength to close my arms to be able to put the cuffs on. Bearing in mind, I had committed no crime here. So the female officer kept telling the male officer she could not do it and kept shouting at her, "Do it, just fucking do it," and so she forced my skin through the handcuff locks and locked them in place. My skin locked into the locking mechanism of the handcuffs. They then dragged me into a police van as I screamed for help. Nobody helped. The police then did not inform the ward when I arrived about my injury, and I was instantly put into an isolation room on arrival for nearly 20 hours until the next day. It was the next day the nurse and carers noticed the blood on my arm. Not only did the police not tell the medical staff about my open wound, but they also did not tell them what they did to my neck. So I haven't had any medical treatment for my neck ever. My wrist did get cleaned up by a carer when they saw it the next morning. I had blood all over my arm from what they did. When I made a complaint to the police about it, they said in their statements, and I quote, "He did it to himself." I will just let you contemplate that. Bearing in mind, I have never had handcuffs on before or ever seen them or used a pair, except maybe children's toy ones when I was a kid. Then the female had both hands controlling my left arm, and the male had control over my right arm. Both my arms were behind my back, and not only did I have no idea about handcuffs, but I could not see them. But they both claimed I did that to myself. Nothing was done. This drove me even crazier. It gave me massive anxiety that I was actually being targeted by the police here for some reason. Considering how vocal I was about the government's failures at the time, it is not out of the question the British government has used mental health treatment to silence critics before. So I was just getting more insane, not better. Because the very people who had driven me insane in the first place kept getting sent out and assaulting me for becoming insane. Making me more insane. It was a vicious cycle of attacks on James to silence him. Instead of dealing with the mistakes we made. Ironically, something my parents thought would work as well. Blame James and take no accountability. That was my family's way my whole life. So it was starting to seem the police were the same to me. I did actually manage to get them to admit to breaching the EU Human Rights Charter without them knowing that is what they were admitting to. as somewhat payback for them wrongly arresting me and wrongly charging me. So maybe that's why they gave me lifelong injuries. They did occur after I got them to admit to human rights abuse. Specifically, breaches of Section 3 of the EU Human Rights Charter. But eventually, once again, I got discharged. It was maybe a year or so later until the police would come trying to section me again. This was after I had been illegally held under the Mental Health Act. It was because you are supposed to do the mental health assessment separately, not two at the same time. But the two doctors sat in the same room and assessed me at the same time. This was a breach of the requirements to hold me under the Mental Health Act. This is done to ensure you don't end up in an asylum just because you are having an off day. So these two doctors broke the law to get the police to take me away again. They kept taking me away from my daughter, the monsters. There was no need. Only this mental health detainment. They came to this very room I write this in now. There were 12 of them in my living room. Just like on one previous occasion. I had refused to move. Like I was made of stone, these 12 men could not overpower me enough to get me off my sofa. I wriggled, I grabbed things. They were all even laughing at me. I understand it may have been funny, but they were like the SS laughing at the Jewish families being dragged out of their homes. That is how I saw them. I still see them. So in this incident, a male officer had actually pulled my right arm out of the shoulder socket, then quickly put it back in. It has never been the same since. I am in pain every day, with my neck, my shoulder, and my back. The police really thought it was reasonable to give me several lifelong injuries and further mental health problems in the form of PTSD, all as a result of police negligence. I had had enough. They were not going to get away with this. Nobody treats me this way and gets away with it. They are just lucky I am a nice human being, not a violent one. So then I was out on a ward, nearly 30 miles away from my daughter, and guess who was the doctor who was in charge of my human rights? The same doctor who broke the law to have me held under the Mental Health Act. You could not make it up. So, as if this was not bad enough, this doctor decided he knew better than me about my own health. He never asked why I was unwell, he never asked what made me unwell. All he cared about was pumping me full of dodgy medications that made me unwell and essentially left me sedated in a mental coma in a bed all day, shaking. Despite my telling all the staff, the nurses, the caregivers, and the mother of the child, I was telling everyone that this stuff was making me sick. It was like poison. I got put on what is called a community treatment order. I was legally forced to take an injection in my buttock every 2 weeks for the next 2 years. The doctor had chosen the medication, seemingly at random, and no matter how much I protested, no matter what I did, they just kept forcing it on me. Not letting me leave to see my daughter if I did not take it. Literally forcibly penetrating me against my will, with experimental medication that is not helping me, just to see if it does. That is called human experimentation. They blackmailed me with my child to force medication on me. I had become the victim of torture via human experimentation. They knew it would not cure me, but I kept telling them it was making me unwell and not helping me. They carried on blackmailing me by seeing my daughter to force me to take it. After nearly a year of it, I eventually managed to persuade the management to transfer me closer to my daughter. I have never been so glad to get away from a human being in my life as I was getting away from that doctor. He should be in prison for what he did to me. So should every single police officer who failed in the line of duty while dealing with me. It is nothing short of a disgrace what has happened to me. An innocent, good man, yet nobody stood up for me. There was nobody to care about my tears and screams for help. I even messaged my parents, begging them to help me. My mom told me I was in the right place. I was not. I was being tortured, and they were going to let it happen. I lost all hope. There was nothing I could do but just push through, hoping one day the torture would end. 3 years after my first injection, they wanted to discharge me fully from the community mental health team. They deal with you when you're at home. But I was told if they discharge me on that medication that makes me unwell, they will always try to claim it is that medication that helped me and keep putting me back on it. So I refused to be discharged until they put me on the medication the doctor changed me from. Despite my protests, despite all the evidence that he ignored. Ever since I came off those evil, awful injections they kept forcing into me, I just keep getting better, stronger. I never started getting better, even slightly, until I came off the awful stuff they were torturing me with. Yet the NHS will claim it was medical treatment. I am sure the Nazis said the same. I am sure the British government said the same to the man who cracked the Enigma code, and they forced medication on him that caused him to become sterile. That was his reward from Britain for winning us the war, to be sterilized. The way my country treats its own people often disgusts me. From ex-soldiers being given unnecessary lobotomies, to modern-day unnecessary electrotherapy and forcing injections into patients they know won't cure them. Something has to change. Hopefully, one day, people with mental disabilities will not be treated like animals. Hopefully, one day, the police will not treat disabled people like criminals, just because they can get away with it and deny it. But I only got better from coming off the medication they forced me onto that I never wanted to take. If they had their way, I would have been on that poison for the rest of my life. Then they would have pumped other toxic chemicals into me for the side effects of the original medication. Something has to change here. I really don't think I was the problem. But I am glad to know I have this mental disability. It really may be a blessing in disguise. Because if I had never known I had this problem, it may have been the case that I cost my own or someone else's life from listening to the voice. Maybe it was better I suffered that pain, rather than someone else suffering it, because I did not know the truth. The truth is, I will never know, but I know the police did wrong and never admitted it, and I know the doctors and the NHS did wrong. I know my parents, my family, and my country did wrong to me. But I forgive them. I just want to make sure it never happens to someone else, because that is how supervillains are born. The truth is that nearly dying gave me a new life, and losing my mind helped me find it. I also did not even know people could actually come back from insanity like that. I believed it to be a one-way street. You could not come back down. But it turns out, it can be done. I did it, although I am still considered weird and strange by most people. That was always the before insanity, so it is just a return to normality for me.